My children are pregnancies 5 and 6, which means that pregnancies 1 through 4 did not end in a live-born baby. I am one of the statistics. I am 1 in 4. And today I'm talking all about Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, their experience, and how it showed us both the best and the worst things about society. I was a resident when we first decided to start trying to get pregnant. I had spent years and years on birth control, preventing a pregnancy. I did not want to be pregnant. I wasn't ready. I was married, I had great support, but I wasn't ready. And when I came off birth control, ready to start trying, I just presumed it would happen really easy, which I know is really dumb because I'm a fertility doctor. I was an OBGYN resident at the time, but I just thought it would be a much simpler process. And what I found was that it wasn't. When we finally got pregnant, I was so excited, but I didn't tell anybody. Literally the only people who knew were my husband and myself. Not a soul, not my best friends, not my mom, not anybody. And I didn't feel like it was okay to tell anybody. I had always heard and presumed that you kept it quiet the first trimester so that you knew it would be an okay pregnancy and then you would tell people. And especially in medicine, where you're already judged and there's so much misogyny. And I knew people would say things or think things like I didn't take my job seriously, or maybe I really wasn't committed to matching into fellowship if I was trying to get pregnant at that moment. None of which were true. The truth was I wanted to be a doctor and a mom. I always wanted to be a doctor and a mom. And my first miscarriage was really traumatic for me because nobody knew. And I was on L&D, so I was the chief resident running labor and delivery. And I started bleeding. I hadn't been pregnant before. I had cramping. I convinced myself that maybe it was normal from looking up stuff on like what not to expect forums because there weren't great infertility communities like there are now. And I saw cramping could be normal. So I was like, okay, it's fine, it's fine. And then had a really terrible cramp. I went into the bathroom and heavy bleeding. But I was the chief resident. That meant I was responsible for all those women in labor, every single one. What happened to their babies depended on me. And it was not an option for me to go home. At least I didn't feel like it was an option to go home. On hindsight, if I had let other people in, I could have gotten the support I needed. But I didn't know how to let them in. And so I didn't. I carried on my shift acting like nothing happened. I stopped on my way home in a bathroom to change my pad because I was bleeding so heavy. I got home and the cramps were so bad, I started throwing up and told my husband what happened. And he was great and supportive. And we picked ourselves up and kept trying. 2 more miscarriages after that, and then a tubal pregnancy. And I was to the point where I just wasn't sure if it would happen. I started to open up when I had the tubal pregnancy. And that is when I learned that I had a lot of support. And that support really gave me comfort and peace and showed me that the number one thing to know is that letting other people in is really important. But it also shows me that here I am, a healthcare professional, an OBGYN, and I didn't know enough. I was surprised by my own miscarriage, and I really was not prepared to go through so many losses before we had our children. Now, my kids are perfect and they're the best. And I can look back and know that struggle led me to a place of where I am now. And I practice medicine really differently because of it. But one thing you will hear is that 1 out of 4 women will suffer from miscarriage. And that's the statistic we use to kind of approach this generally. But the truth is, there's a lot of different causes of miscarriage. Miscarriage increases with age because the number one cause of miscarriage is random genetic abnormalities. But the prevalence increases with age. So if you're under the age of 30, your chance of miscarrying is about 15%. If you're between age 30 to 34, it's about 20%. If you're between age 35 to 39, it's about 25%. And if you're over the age of 40, it's between 30 to 50%. So miscarriage becomes more common as we get older. Our chromosomes are inside our eggs, held in that perfect stage of meiosis called metaphase. And our little proteins break down so that when we go and split, they start to split abnormally the longer they've been sitting there. And the vast majority of pregnancies miscarry in the first trimester. And that's not what happened to Chrissy Teigen, but that should give you some comfort because if you're pregnant and you have an ultrasound and you have a baby that has a heartbeat, your chance of miscarrying goes down to less than 5%. And so that should be reassuring. That's why we, your doctors, love it when we see that little flutter of a heartbeat on ultrasound. The other factors that can cause miscarriage they're really important too. So genetic abnormalities, random aneuploidies, that means abnormal chromosome number one cause. Other things can include genetic rearrangements. That's called a balanced translocation. It's actually something you carry in your genes and you can pass it on, and you have a very high prevalence of miscarriage, over 50% if you have a translocation. There are autoimmune diseases like autoimmune thyroid disease and diabetes and autoimmune clotting disorders that can all increase the prevalence of miscarrying. There are structural abnormalities, so things like a uterine septum. I actually really find uterine septums fascinating. A uterine septum is a birth defect. So the uterus is formed in two different horns. So imagine these two little buds, and they grow over time, and then they fuse together, and then they become this little triangle. And the midline connecting tissue that connected them reabsorbs, and then you get that perfect little triangle that we all think about when we think of the uterus. A septum is failure of reabsorption of that midline material. And when you have a septum, you then have up to an 80% chance of miscarriage. The reason why I personally really like septums is because if we find one and I go take it out, you're returned to normal. It's fast and it's easy and it's a beautiful surgery. For the surgery, you can literally look with a camera in through the vagina into the uterus, and you can see the septum coming at you, and you can see the two different uterine cavity sides, and you can take out the septum and suddenly you can see the uterine cavity restored. Miscarriage can also be more common with other type of uterine abnormalities too. So you can have failure of an entire horn to form that leaves you with a unicornuate uterus, just one horn. You can have complete two horns that never fuse. That's called a didelphys. You can also have a bicornuate uterus, which is often called a heart-shaped because it's a partial fusion and partial reabsorption. So you're left with this heart-shaped fashion. Those all have miscarriage rates between 40 to 50%. Other things that can cause a miscarriage is anything that can impair with the placenta implanting. So uterine fibroids, which are benign masses inside the uterus, that can impair how the placenta grows in. Also the location of the placenta. So if it's a prebia, which means it covers part of the cervix, it may not get as much blood supply as it normally needs. There's also ovulatory issues. So thyroid disease can lead to ovulation issues, but so can PCOS. PCOS, whole video on PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's a very interesting thing where you don't ovulate well, but there's also metabolic abnormalities that increase the chance of miscarriage. And women with PCOS have over a 30% chance of miscarrying. There's also things like luteal phase defect, which is a progesterone deficiency. And that's where you may not be ovulating from the best follicle, or maybe that follicle doesn't make enough progesterone. And progesterone is essential for early pregnancy. Now, Chrissy Teigen, she posted this photo on Instagram, and I just want you to look at it. I can't imagine what it was like to say, I'm going through one of the hardest moments of my life, and let me take a picture of it and put it out there for everybody. To me, I am inspired by that type of bravery to open up your soul in your hardest times. How do you even choose a picture to reflect such heartbreak? I was in awe of that. And I want you to listen to the words she wrote. We are shocked and in the kind of deep pain you only hear about, the kind of pain we've never felt before. We were never able to stop the bleeding and give our baby the fluids he needed. Despite bags and bags of blood transfusions, it just wasn't enough. We never decide on our baby's names until the last possible moment after they're born, just before we leave the hospital. But we, for some reason, have started to call this little guy in my belly Jack. So he will always be Jack to us. Jack works so hard to be a part of our little family, and he will be forever. To our Jack, I'm so sorry that the first few moments of your life were met with so many complications, that we couldn't give you the home you needed to survive. We will always love you. Thank you to everyone who has been sending us positive energy, thoughts, and prayers. We feel all of your love, and we truly appreciate you. We are so grateful for the life we have, for our wonderful babies, Luna and Miles, and all the amazing things we've been able to experience. But every day can't be full of sunshine. On this darkest of days, we will grieve, we will cry our eyes out, but we will hug and love each other harder and get through it. For me, for a woman who's gone through pregnancy loss, and not in the second trimester, not as far as long as she was, that's even harder. She had dreams and hopes and really felt confident in that pregnancy until she started having bleeding. And I'm not her doctor. I don't know why she had bleeding. I don't know if it was a placenta previa or an abruption or something, but I know that she was worried about this, and she shared openly and honestly, and she gave a face and a name to our pain. for any woman who's been on the other side of that. She validated the fact that it's powerful to share your story. And she stood for what all of us felt like we had to suffer in silence. And I can't tell you how impactful that is as a woman and as a fertility doctor. I can't imagine what it's like picking those photos, writing out those words, typing into Twitter as you drive home from the hospital, suddenly not pregnant. I think it's amazing that she had a photographer. I don't know who took the pictures, but it's becoming more common to have somebody document these stillbirth moments, because that's what you have. I also am extremely disappointed in society. I feel like I say that over and over again, because somebody opened up and was really brave. This was bravery to me. And a lot of people felt that. And then a lot of people criticized her, and they tweeted things that were outrageous. And they told her she needs to do this or she needs to do that. And she needs to grieve in silence. This isn't for public conception. This isn't for the public to see. That she didn't have a right to share these moments, that this is too personal, that she was doing it for publicity. Oh my gosh, no. The cancel culture of you telling everybody what they have to do so that they fit your expectations is so wrong. She shares her life purely to share it, to inspire other people. And Chrissy, you did that. You have helped more people by sharing your heartbreak with Jack than you know. You have helped those of us have a voice. And you've shown everybody that haters are going to hate, even in a moment which seems incomprehensible. I can't even understand how you can see somebody suffering this bad and choose to come in their tweets and DMs and comments with hate. Why is there so much hate? We have bigger fish to fry. We accomplish nothing by breaking each other down. And I truly hope that we can spread more awareness that miscarriage is common, and that if we tell people earlier on, that's the number one thing I think we should change. If we tell people earlier on, we can get more support and we can get more awareness for something that impacts so many others. My two kiddos are my rainbow babies. In the fertility world, a rainbow baby is a baby born after miscarriage or loss. And to anybody who's ever been through that and who's hoping and searching for their rainbow, I'm sending you tons of love. As always, thank you guys so much. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can get more fertility related information on the As a Woman podcast. Thank you so much.